A very beautiful evening to you. You're welcome to another exciting edition of Sport on Atlantic Television Network. My name is Kinsley Emmanuel, and on today's edition of the show, we're going to take a look at the just concluded 35th edition of the African Cup of Nations, hosted by Morocco, and was such an impressive one. Senegal, emerged winner of that particular one, and we're going to take a look at everything that happened at the 35th edition of the African Cup of Nations and down there, Morocco, as well as some other interesting stories for you this evening. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. You're welcome back to Sports Extraordinary on Atlantic Television and Network, and of course, with me in the studio this evening at the highlights of the 2025 African Cup of Nations is Dr. Elechi Oweke, the lecturer in the University of Port Harcourt. Doc, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Yeah,
good evening to you.
Yeah, a very good evening, and I think it is nice to be here and to discuss sports this evening.
All right, let's move and take a look at the highlights of the African Cup of Nations in Morocco. The 25 African Cup of Nations will longer be remembered for the manner in which it ended. Now, chaotic scenes unfolded at the end of the regulation time in the final when the award of a penalty to Morocco sparked a walk-off by Senegal and led to a delay of more than 16 minutes before Ibrahim Diaz's penalty attempt was saved. Atlas Lions coach Wale Regragui described the incident as shameful, while the Confederation of African Football has yet to announce any sanctions on that. However, there were far more to the tournament from what, of course, was saw. So, Doc, let's take a look at what really caught people, a lot of persons fancy in this African Cup of Nations. First was the infrastructure. We understand that Morocco delivered outstanding infrastructure facilities. Outstanding infrastructure facilities. In this one we saw, a lot of the beautiful stadium, and with talk about the Prince Mola Adala Stadium in the capital standing out, and hosting the tournament was partly in preparation for co-hosting the 2030 FIFA World Cup alongside Spain and Portugal. The North Africa has benefited from heavy investments in recent years, backed by King Mohammed VI, who said the country's infrastructure demonstrated resilience and world-class level of readiness. Further improvements are planned with the Stade Mohammed V in Casablanca and stadiums in France, Marrakesh, and Akadel set for renovation, while work continues on the 115,000 capacity stadium near Benz La Mania. The Prince Mola Adala Stadium, with its colorful LED exterior displays, became a symbol of the tournament. Pitches head up strongly despite persistent rain, a long-standing challenge for AFCON hosts. Now, media colleagues from East Africa marveled at what they witnessed, though future co-hosts Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda are unlikely to match the same scale. Kenya Football Federation President Ozan Mohammed admitted Morocco had set a new standard, but said key steps were being taken to improve infrastructure ahead of AFCON 2027, the date of which are yet to be announced by CAF. Doc, what do you make of the infrastructure we saw down there in Morocco in hosting the 35th edition of the African Cup of Nations?
I think Morocco has really been so deliberate in action towards improvement of their infrastructure in terms of the kind of stadia they have. From the very first time they hosted the FIFA Club World Cup, and they started hosting certain big events in Africa and the world, so that some of the funds they get from FIFA in terms of those projects, and also they are also internally generated funds, they were able to put it into good use. They decided to see how they look at their infrastructure, because football doesn't just come. Football goes with infrastructure. You cannot be saying you are a good footballing nation when you don't have good infrastructure, when you don't have good stadia, when you don't have good facilities. So what they did was to see how they come up with the plan of improving their stadia. And they did that. The AFCON tournament, you said that they had a top-notch stadia. That I think two of those stadia are of capacity of over 70,000. The one at Tangier, Takida, I can't pronounce the name, but and the other one, the one where they played the final at Rabat. I think these are two of the best two of the best stadia with the highest capacity. So Morocco has been deliberate. Now you see that they are already planning ahead. They are building a stadium of over 100,000 capacity. Yeah. That's to tell you that they are deliberate in what they are doing. They are not delivering because it didn't just happen overnight. No, it is because the managers there saw it that it is very necessary. If we do this, we can attract investors. And investors are coming. Hosting the AFCON alone, hosting the WAFCON, they have been hosting and they will keep hosting. Yeah. That's to tell you that when you keep your house in order, you reap from it. That's what Morocco is doing. I believe that others can borrow a leaf from that. If you watch, Morocco is not the only developing stadia at Rabat or Marrakesh. They went as far as the other smaller cities. So they are carrying all the cities along. The developmental plan is holistic. By the time you are developing your facilities, sports facilities, it also goes a long way to developing the infrastructure, because those who use the stadia will also need hotels. They will need to apply good roads. So when you do all this, you see that it is a holistic developmental approach. The country will develop. So it will not just end up having good stadia, and at the end of the day, the city is in a mess. No. For you to even have good stadia, that means you have good managers. So it is those that manages the whole process that ensures that everything is in order. Kudos must be given to Morocco. They had a top-notch infrastructure in terms of the infrastructures that were used for this last AFCON. I don't know. We have other countries, if they can borrow a leaf from what Morocco have started doing, because they have started doing it, they have not ended, they are still doing it, and they will keep doing it.
And talking about the infrastructure down there at Morocco, and we've seen that CAF has really tilted, they have really gotten CAF attention, because if you look at it, most of the major tournaments like the Women African Cup of Nations, I think will be this edition that is coming will be hosted down there, and it's going to be for the third consecutive time now that the Women AFCON will be hosted down there in Morocco, and we could see that other competition are also taking place down there in Morocco. Do you think with what Morocco they've done in terms of infrastructure, all right, it is justifiable that CAF is giving them the rights to host all of this tournament? Because some person are of the opinion that why is CAF taking everything down to Morocco? Why is CAF taking all the competition down there to Morocco? And Morocco, if you take a look at African football now, they now have a huge say on what happens.
I think it is not bad that CAF is taking some of the major tournaments to Morocco. But be it as it may, if you look at it in terms of readiness, I think they have been the ones readily available to host. Hosting is not about in terms of facility. You also look at the infrastructure. You also look at the readiness. So I think Morocco has everly been ready to host, and that is why they have always gotten the go-ahead to host most of these tournaments. Now, you have had over the years situation where countries were supposed to host major tournament, and they will, because of the country not being ready, you see that they shift it to another nation to host. It has happened even in Africa. It has been happening, and it will still keep happening. But be that as it may, I think it will also be normal, or it will be right, if CAF also look at other countries which are ready, even if the facility is not as of the same class with that of Morocco, because every two countries can never have the same class of facility. But if there are countries ready to host the Nations Cup, and CAF have assessed them and see them ready, it will be so bad that they will still keep giving Morocco when there are other people ready. But if there are no country ready in terms of facility, infrastructure, in terms of managerial input and everything all together, then it is right. CAF can give them because they are also one ready. Let me ask a question. Is Nigeria ready to host is the giant of Africa ready to host the Nations Cup? No. The only stadium we have today is the one at Uyo. The rest of the stadia are not in a good good state. The one we have at Port Harcourt, it is a mess.
So, Doc, in this situation, you just brought in the Nigeria angle, into this, discussion at this point in time. Or saying Ivory Coast hosts the African Cup of Nations by themselves.
When they say by themselves, as if Dr. Lechi will go there to help them host the Nations Cup.
I mean, just like what we want to experience in 2027, where Tanzania
where they are co-hosting.
Yes,
where there is co-host.
Ivory Coast did it by themselves. Even Cameroon. At some point,
but Nigeria have also hosted. In 1980, we hosted the Nations Cup, and we hosted the World Cup in 1999, Nigeria 99, and we hosted the Under-17 World Cup in 2009. So,
can we
hosted ourselves too.
Can we host the African Cup of Nations now?
With the situation of things on ground, I think it is going to be very difficult, because when you talk in terms of hosting, it requires a lot of sacrifices, and of which most of our leaders are not ready to make such sacrifice. For instance, Rivers State hosted the 2015 edition or thereabout of the National Sports Festival, where we were made to believe that the stadium that was used for that event was fully ready and everything, top-notch facility and all the rest. But you go there now, you see that some of these facilities they were mentioning and the things we are saying were all on paper and they were not real. So I believe it's going to be difficult because of the kind of dirtiness and the kind of way we run our politics here. It is going to be very, very difficult, except to have a president that will be ready to critically look at sports, because sports has been relegated to the background. They see sports as a way of trying to see how they help those who have helped them to get into power, and they can bring in anybody to be the sports minister, anybody can be the chairman or whosoever of the National Sports Commission, anybody can be the NFF president, and at the end of the day, everything is all about politics. And when politics takes order, it becomes very difficult for meritocracy to come into play. And when there is difficulty for merit to come into play, you see that certain things cannot be met.
Okay.
Hotel is now a personal business. Yes, it's supposed to be, but the government is supposed to regulate certain things. Do we have the top facility in terms of hotel facilities to host such tournaments? Let's leave the stadium alone. Do we have the training facilities? Because these players will not train only on the stadium. They will also train outside. The hotels we have, do they have the facility where they can go there and warm up and do other things? What about the roads? The road infrastructure? We don't. So it will be very difficult. I will still repeat, it will be very difficult for Nigeria to host a competition of the magnitude of the African Cup of Nations at this point, where everything in Nigeria has turned to politics. And when they are doing that...
But we've been talking about hosting Commonwealth Games.
With which facility?
We talk about, that's the question, with which facilities, because if we're talking about hosting Commonwealth Games, we should be looking at which facilities. There was even a time there was
Commonwealth Games. We're talking about over 70 countries coming to Nigeria.
Formula One events, let's leave Formula One because maybe that one is done on the road. Or talking about Commonwealth Games, that you need tracks, and all of that, as it stands. So if the National Sport Commission might have come up with that idea, want to host Commonwealth Games, at some point, they bidded for it, but unfortunately they didn't get the bid, at the end of the day. So if they come up with that idea, don't you think probably there could have been that mindset, or maybe, of course, if we can bid for the Commonwealth Games, then we can stage the African Cup of Nations?
No, I think it's a very wrong mindset, because it's not about mindset. It should be about readiness. You can't. There's always that wish. Oh, I wish I can do this. I wish I can do that. Wish cannot necessarily translate to reality. Everybody wish. I wish I have a car. I wish I have a house. I wish I'm in the US. But wish necessarily doesn't translate to reality. There should be that eagerness. There should be that readiness to do that. And how do we see readiness? First, it starts with trying to put into place facilities. If you want to host in 2030, by now you should have started a comprehensive approach to ensuring that facilities are put in place. In 2004, Port hosted the Nigerian University Games. As I tell you, at the time, the facilities we had at Uniport, Dolphins of Port Harcourt, back then, they were coming to play their league matches at the University of Port Harcourt. That stadium is still there. Now, check the tracks now. The tracks are bad. Check the facilities. What has the state government, okay, that's the federal facility. What has the sports commission done? The sports commission is to have inventory of all the facilities they have across the country, and they check the status. Need be where they can help, they can have collaboration, because the essence is that these facilities are for human capacity development. They develop athletes, so they should have Tell me if the sports commission do come around to Uniport to check if the facilities are in top shape. They don't. They don't even know if there is any facility like that. Who is in charge? Is the University of Port Harcourt sports unit that is in charge? But the federal government, through the sports commission, should also come along to see what is happening. It's not just about wish or trying to see how if we can host this, then we should be able to host it. No, you don't try. You make it happen. And as it stands, Nigeria is not ready. We are not ready to host any major tournament because it will only speak volume if we have started refurbishing and rehabilitating and building new stadia, building new roads, and seeing how we revamp our infrastructures. Then we can now say that, oh, we are ready to host the Susu tournament. And don't forget that back then when we hosted some of these major tournaments, it was under the military rule. The only tournament that Nigeria has hosted since the civilian took over in 2009 was the Under-17 World Cup, which was under the government of Goodluck Jonathan. Since then, it has not been Uhuru. And that is why it has also been very difficult for Nigeria to win major tournaments. We've not won anything.
Okay, I think we'll try to hold it there, but we're talking about the impressive state of sporting infrastructure down there in Morocco. Was such an impressive one we saw in the 35th edition of the African Cup of Nations hosted by Morocco down there. And still taking a look at another highlights, for the 35th edition of the AFCON in Morocco. Let's take a look at, the amount of money gotten from this one. Now, CAF President Patrick Mosempe has overseen a significant improvement in AFCON's commercial performance. Although FIFA President Gianni Infantino criticized the ugly scenes at the end of the final, CAF says revenues from the tournament grew by 90%, with ticket income rising sharply from $11 million at the 2023 edition in Ivory Coast to $55 million in Morocco. Number of sponsors and major partners increased to 33, while improved social media coverage boosted the competition's global profile. Last year, CAF forecast a net profit of more than $114 million, up from $75 million 2 years earlier. With figures like this, questions have been raised over CAF's decision to switch AFCON from a now tournaments to a quadrennial tournament from 2028, and whether similar value can be generated outside Morocco. Now, Morocco is also set to host its third consecutive Women's African Cup of Nations, prompting Nigerian star Zido Shola to describe the country as the new headquarters of African football, adding that it was getting boring returning so often down there to Morocco, and that's what so many persons have been saying. But aside that, though, let's take a look at the progress of Patrick Mosempe in terms of generating a lot of funds from this tournament. What do you make of his administrative progress so far? Because we take a look at it, the man has gradually, of course, increased the level of revenue, all right, that the AFCON generates.
Okay, I think the coming in of Mosepe has really turned the fortune of CAF in terms of competition. And if you watch, it's not just about, I think one thing he literally did was the issue of coverage and TV rights and his followership. If you check the AFCON, the last AFCON that was held in Cote d'Ivoire, I think it even had more followership than this this last one. And there's that competition, there's that, apart from teams, key football stakeholders across the globe we are busy talking about the AFCON, especially during that 2023 edition, which was held in Ivory Coast. So, but kudos, we must give him kudos. He's a businessman and he's running it like a business. At the end of the day, we're having chunk of money coming out from what all he has placed in the business. But let's not also forget that in as much as he's running lose the game. So we shouldn't take away the passion of it and look at it from more of about the money without looking at the passion. Because if we are looking at it from the money angle alone, sometimes we may lose the passion people have for the game. So I believe he has done a lot, but he should also try to marry it with the passion people have for the game. Let's not just be more about being business minded. Let's also look at the passion. Let's also look at the feeling of people towards the game. For instance, hosting by Morocco is all the hosting going to Morocco is as a result of probably the money that will be made from it. But what about the other nations? Look at what happened in the finals. It must not be a host. The host must win at all costs. No, that shouldn't be the situation, and that is what everything was tilting towards, which is a very wrong scenario. So why we try to make the money? Let us also balance with not making the money and giving people the real feeling of football.
All right, still talking about the AFCON, as it stands. Let's talk about the side. Before we even go down to the we saw so far in the AFCON, we told you that we talked about the sporting infrastructure and the revenue increase we saw in this particular tournament. But before we talk about the high level of optimism we've seen so far in the tournament, we'd like to take a break. When we return, we'll talk about what people have said about the African Cup of Nations. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're welcome back to Sport Extraordinary on Atlantic Television Network. We bring you the major highlights, from the 35th edition of the African Cup of Nations. And let's talk about the side that so many persons have really said a whole lot about. Is the part of the officiating, the African Cup of Nations. Now, on the downside, officiating were frequently questioned. Before their semi-final against Nigeria, Reguagui dismissed claims that referees were favoring the hosts. He said, and I quote, "I watch a lot of matches and the controversies are the same everywhere in Africa or Europe," he said. Now, a major flashpoint came in the final, which referee Jack Ndala controlled well unit's second half stoppage time when events quickly unraveled. The Congolese official halted play for a foul by Adjulaye Sek on Akraf Hakimi before Senegal scored, contributing to a sense of injustice that culminated in a walk-off after Morocco were awarded a penalty. 6 minutes later, the use of video assistant referee reviews appeared to regress after near flawless application at the 2023 tournament. Several reviews took too long, questionable handball and penalty decisions were made. And despite Morocco's investments, semi-automated offside technology was not in use in that particular one. Doc, when it comes to officiating in the concluded African Cup of Nations, a lot of persons are not, okay with it, especially that most of the referees tend to favor the host country, which is of course, Morocco. What is your assessment on the level of officiating in the just concluded AFCON?
First of all, let us let us understand that there is no game that is 100% okay in terms of officiating. Whether you want to take it or not, there is always one area of up or down in terms of football officiating. Now, coming to the AFCON that was just recently concluded in Morocco, the officiating cannot be said to be 100% okay, and there is no football officiation that can be said to be 100% perfect. Now let's leave the host out of it. The game between Nigeria and Algeria, the Algerians complained that they had a penalty that they couldn't, they didn't award to them. What caused the brawl between the Algerians after the game was because they were thinking or believing that the officiating was not truly in their favor. That if they had given them the penalty, that the game would have taken a twist which might have been in their favor. They forgot to understand that dominated the game from the beginning, from the blast of the whistle to the end of the game, which gave them the advantage over the Algerians. Now, let's now shift to the officiating of the quarterfinal match between Morocco and Cameroon, the match between Morocco and Nigeria, and the match between Morocco and Senegal. Yeah. In the match between Morocco and Cameroon, the referee gave the Moroccans the leverage to operate. It's like license to kill. Prior to the goal, there was a penalty, of which Mbomu was brought down on the 16-yard box. I think the 18-yard box, but the referee clearly did not blow anything. Now, the referee was also having that, giving the Moroccans that freedom to play anyhow, and there was no much card. Even when certain situations really obvious that this should be a card offense, they had more in that game. The Moroccans had more. They had more fouls committed than the Cameroonians, and it was obvious. It was obvious. The match against Nigeria, the referee totally signed and sealed as if it was a constitution that the Moroccans can go ahead and there was one foul that was committed against Ademola Lookman. He was going with the ball and two players pulled him down, collected the ball. The referee did not even, he didn't look as if anything happened. It was as if nothing happened. And the, what do they call, the ball boys, we are busy picking the the towel that the goalkeeper was using to wipe his glove. They pick it and throw it away. They even threw banana on the. So I think in terms of officiating, where there was a goal that was disallowed, then there was now the referee, even if that's sorry. What led to the goal? Even if it was a foul, the referee should have waited to check from the VAR because it was a soft touch before he blew. But he blew on time, even before the goal. Now, at the date of time, at that time where they have added time, we are waiting. There's no need for you to blow such penalty because it will always be a controversy. And he did that, and the Senegalese walked away. So what image are we projecting for African football? The officiating, in terms of officiating, if you say I should rate it, the officiating is about 50%. Because the games that would have turned the tournament...
50% is not an average, so you say that at least they tried.
No, they didn't try.
You say 50%.
Officiating should be from 80 to 90%. When you say 50%, okay, why I'm saying 50% is because Morocco is not the only team that played the tournament. So there were also other games that were officiated that were open. So if we're not looking at the Morocco alone, and we're not saying that the game is being we're not doing justice to what actually happened. So when you look at Morocco and other games that we have played, then we'll say the officiating is 50%. But in terms of the games that were played by the Moroccan team, the Moroccans were not fantastic. They were not outrightly fantastic per se. But just that the referee gave them that little bit of time to do anything, they were licensed to kill, and nobody would blow. The game against Nigeria, they played the entire 90 minutes plus 30 minutes of the additional of the extra time. No yellow card on any Moroccan player. These are issues that the CAF should look at. We don't think of making money, make money, or generate money, then we now rubbish the game. No. The football has so many elements. It is not just about the money. Football has so many elements that needs to be looked at. You look at the game itself. You look at the fans. You look at the stakeholders. What is their thoughts on issues that has to do with the competition? In terms of officiating, it wasn't a good one. The officiating wasn't good. That syndrome, that win at all must win, is something that CAF needs to look into. If you host, you mustn't win. Ivory Coast won when they hosted, but they fought back from where they lost so many games and redeemed themselves to winning the tournament.
Yeah. And there was no much issue of...
there was no much issue.
Because
in terms of the game they won against Nigeria, for me, I think Nigerian team didn't play well. But I look at it from the angle as an African man of... they say voodoo, according to Nigerian coach. Say, I look at it from the angle of voodoo because the tiny West African nations, they can do a lot in terms of juju. So I look at it from the juju angle, and that's why we lost. But I give everything to Côte d'Ivoire because they did very well, both in terms of officiating and everything. But that wasn't the case with us. Morocco, we are favored. But at the end, they couldn't win the tournament.
Yeah. You talked about the voodoo issue. There were a whole lot of cases, voodoo, especially from the Moroccans. Just like you mentioned, they were particular about the towels used by the goalkeepers. Especially, we saw that happen in the Super Eagles game. They took Stanley Nwabali's goal, even in the final.
Even Hakimi.
They took the towel of Edward Mendy, the goalkeeper of the Senegalese national team, on several occasions. You saw where the ball boys were busy dragging towel
with the second with the reserve goalkeeper
Senegal, dragging the towel. What is this about the issue of voodoo in Africa?
Juju is juju, and juju is real. The truth is, sometimes juju doesn't play football, and voodoo doesn't play football. It's about the mindset. It's about you doing that which is right in the field of play. Though these things are real, but sometimes they don't work. You do them, they don't come into play. If the player, imagine where maybe you don't have that much strength to do certain things, and you want to now engage with somebody that has so much power, there is an extent to which the juju could work. But in those games that we have played, Nigeria and Senegal, there was no juju. Juju wasn't the real thing. It was just that the people, their mindset has been fixed. No, this is juju. If it were so, then India would have won the World Cup. India has barely participated in the World Cup because they were banned from participating in the World Cup. I don't think it was because of juju. But in terms of juju, India is at they are at the peak. So juju doesn't play football. Though in African scene, they use juju to manipulate people so that when you enter the field, you may enter there and you don't do anything. They control the speed of the ball and where the ball goes. So they will stay outside and remove the ball. The ball, instead of the ball to go direct, they will shift it up. And it does happen.
Does it happen on the?
It does.
In games?
It does.
So if that's the case, it means it's work now. It does work in football.
It does work. It does work, but not in all scenarios. You know, levels. There are levels in the spiritual realms. There are levels of spiritual realms. So let's not go into the spirit. Because if we go to the spiritual realm, it only take the spiritual man to understand what we are talking about.
Yeah.
Even as I'm talking, ordinarily people will say, what is this man saying? Is this man real? But I am facing the real situation. We have ideal situation, we have real situation. What is on ground? It doesn't mean that Senegal that won, they use juju. No, they didn't use juju or voodoo.
All right. The level of officiating was not really top-notch according to Doc, and a lot of football followers here in Africa, they've also shared their thoughts on this one, that the officiating wasn't really a good one. And away from the officiating, let's take a look at the security and crowd control in the AFCON. Now, Senegal's football Federation raised concern about security after their squad was mobbed at Rabat train station ahead of the final. Inside the stadium, Teranga Lions supporters clashed with security personnel following the controversial penalty decision. There was incidents outside stadiums where fans were caught in crushes or confined to tight spaces. Crowd control remains a serious issue, though not unique to Africa, as shown by incidents at Euro 2020, the 2022 UEFA Champions League final. And they also complained it received 4,000 tickets for the final held in 69,500 capacity stadium. Attention were also turned to gamemanship after Moroccan ball boys were seen attempting to remove goalkeeper Edward Mendy's towel, tactics that had earlier Nigeria Stanley Nwabali during the semi-final. Doc, what do you make of it? Crowd control was also an issue in this African Cup of Nations. The Moroccans, their fans were still hostile.
They were even using laser lights on the players. I think it has to do with organization. That's why when you talk about Mosepe and the turnout, the amount of money that was realized from the competition, I try to let you understand that football has so many elements, and competition of this magnitude is not just about the money. Now we're talking about the crowd control. What did CAF do? What did the host? What did they do concerning security? These are some of the things that they should have looked at and tried to see how they control some of these things. It becomes so bad that these things keep Morocco year in. It happened during the WAFCON, where they were using lasers on the players. It is a wrong thing, and let's condemn it when we see such. I think CAF and the host, Morocco, did not sit down to look at some of these key elements that affect the competition. Now, because Morocco did not win, I'm hearing a rumor that they want to now apply to join the UEFA, which is not supposed to be.
Would that be possible?
It is. Australia was playing with Oceania before. Now they play with AFC. Israel is in Asia, but they play with Europe. Azerbaijan plays with Europe. So it's possible. Uzbekistan is in Asia, they play with Europe. So it's just a matter of what do they call it? Acceptance from if after all they are very close. Morocco is the closest country to Europe. And in terms of development and everything, they also measure power with European countries. That's why it's even very easy for them to co-host with Spain and Portugal, the 2030 World Cup.
So you take a look at it, CAF didn't really do well, or the organizers to say didn't do well.
It has to start with CAF. CAF did not do well. You have already mentioned it. Their interest is how much they make from the competition. They also need to look at the key elements.
So what should they do going forward in terms of crowd control? Because we've always
security issues.
Last time in Cameroon, I think we saw a stampede.
Yes, security issues are left for security experts. I wouldn't state here what they should have done, but there should be a round table. They should come up with scenarios that could, certain things that will happen if we have so number of cars. If the crowd is doing this, what do we do? So they already have measures, things to do if so things comes up. In tournament like when there was stampede in Cameroon, what do we do to ensure that there is no stampede? What do we do to ensure that the crowd trouble is controlled? So these are the things. You have a meeting, you call experts will sit down, analyze it, and see how.